Hello, welcome to the Seatton Education Podcast, where we delve into all things home education with expert guests from around the world. I'm Victoria. Today I'm speaking to Thomas Curto, a recent homeschool graduate from Italy. We'll be talking about his experience, and he'll be sharing reflections on his home education journey. Hi Thomas, thanks so much for being here.
Hi Victoria, it's an honor.
I wonder if you could just start by introducing yourself, how old you are, where you're living now, and how long were you home educated?
Great, of course. My name is Thomas Curto. I'm 19 years old and I'm currently living in Italy, although we do go back and forth between Italy and Ireland, specifically Milan and a small town in County Leitrim. I'm 19 years old and I was home educated from a very young age, right through to the end of high school. That means I spent about 12 years in total learning at home.
Amazing. And so who did the home educating at home? Paint a picture of who was in the house, who was the main teacher, do you have siblings? Just paint a picture for us.
I come from a family of 5, so I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers. I'm the oldest. And when it came to the home educating, my mom took on the primary role. But it really was a collaborative effort with the whole family. We all enjoyed learning together and still do to this day. And this made the experience just a lot funner too.
Amazing. And you were traveling between the 2 countries, Ireland and Italy, for a lot of that time home educating, is that right?
Yes, as a family, we enjoy traveling because we not only love spending time and doing fun things together as a family, we find it is a truly enriching experience, getting in contact with different cultures, learning different languages, different foods, different people. This is one of the reasons my family chose to homeschool, traveling.
Yeah, and it's obviously allowed you to do that. And interesting, because you pick up on some points there about getting to spend a lot of time together as a family. Obviously, you will know, I'm sure, that when people talk about home educating, you always get the big S, the what about socialization question. How do you feel you would answer that question based on your experience?
Well, when it comes to socialization, I really like to think what we mean by the word socialization. How do we define it? Because for a lot of people, socialization happens in a certain setting, in a certain age range, doing certain specific activities, right? If anything, homeschooling provided me with a richer social experience. I wasn't limited to interacting only with peers that were my own age. I engaged with a wide variety of people from different groups and backgrounds. Um, and just the key thing for me was that my family really was there, and it was not all about, just to be clear, we were not always inside the house, right? A lot of people, when I say
Yeah.
home educated, they're like, so that means you spend a lot of time at home. No.
You never left the house.
Right? Yes, no, that is not it. We really got to do a ton of activities, and just to be short, did not miss a single thing, and enjoyed the whole way.
And actually, Thomas, you're being modest here, because you had some pretty exciting and high-level hobbies outside of the home, right? Do you want to talk about those a bit?
Yes, that's true. Actually, I pursued a career in ballet in my younger years, and breakdance. I still dance to this day, although I've shifted to other university more related subjects. And yes, for a period of my time, I was going every day training ballet and breakdance, and that was an intense period, and a period of growth. It showed me, in a lot of respects, the flexibility that home education provides, because a lot of the times I was talking with my friends, and they would tell me how it's hard to balance schoolwork and dance and training for recitals, because it doesn't ever stop there. And I'm not saying I didn't have my challenges because we all have our challenges, but just being with the family and getting that together was something that helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting. So actually, it wasn't just the flexibility of the hours that allowed with homeschooling that allowed you to pursue those interests. I mean, we've all seen films about the intensity of young ballerinas and young ballet dancers, and would you say that having that family so much more central in your life was a useful kind of bedrock, a sort of stability pillar, if you like, in your youth?
Yes, because I feel like with school, we have a separation that for hundreds of years was not the case, right? Um,
Mm.
a lot, for basically all of history, um, the children learned the trade of the parents. And what that meant was they simply spent a lot of time with them. And of course, that time was spent teaching the trade, the craft, but it was also a moment of bonding. And I feel modern society, while it has gained a lot, especially through technology, with respect to the family, I believe that we've lost a lot. And people don't realize this. People don't realize this because we have a short memory. We have a short memory.
Mm.
And so I feel like home education allowed me to cultivate a bond that I would really enjoy. I would really like to have the honor to pass on, hopefully in the future, to my kids. So
Mm.
yes, it played a vital
Yeah,
role.
that's so interesting to hear, Thomas. And as you say, something that I think is really easy to forget in a lot of our modern society, because actually a lot of lives and lifestyles are just not really structured around the family unit anymore. So it's so interesting that you've made that so clear that that was important to you. Can you give us an idea of the practicality? I think when sometimes people come to home education, they say, okay, yeah, I understand. This sounds great, but what on earth does it look like? You know, what did your weeks look like? What did a day look like? And I know you're going to say there's no typical day, but give us a flavor of maybe a couple of typical days.
Sure. Like our days were flexible, but structured. Mornings usually involved more focused academic work, in my case, math and science, while afternoons were reserved for more creative projects. Now, that said, the typical day varied significantly, but the underlying principle was that of self-responsibility, right?
Hmm.
And that's something I feel that in schools is very different because you have a teacher, right? You have a teacher that has to make sure that you're doing what you ought to be doing, right? And a lot of the times we there's this relationship between the student and the teacher where if the student can get away with something, the student will. Um,
Hmm.
with home education, though, there was just so much faith, right? Faith in me,
Hmm.
in us as kids that, like, sure, maybe sometimes we wouldn't make the best use of our time, but we would know, like, hey,
Hmm.
we got to the end of the day and said, you know, maybe I shouldn't have been reading Percy Jackson the whole day, right? Uh,
Yeah.
maybe
You can see the consequence so much quicker.
exactly, and it wasn't something like, I got away with it. Ha, nobody
Yeah.
knows, nobody knows. I cheated on the test. No, no, no
Yeah.
tests, no tests. It is simply um, a relationship based in honesty.
In real life, everyone always says, how will homeschoolers prepare for real life? In real life, if you don't show up at work, you're not cheating anyone other than yourself. You're the one losing out if you don't, even basic things, like if you don't brush your teeth, if you don't eat well, you're not cheating anyone else, you're cheating yourself. And yet I think you're so right that at school, there's this kind of very oppositional relationship between the them of the teachers and the us, this pack of peers of a same age. And, it's, haha, we got one over on the teacher. My mother used to teach, and she said once she went in and her 16-year-old students hadn't done their homework. And they said to her, well, I didn't want to do the homework. And my mother said, fine, no problem. And they said, what? And she said, well, I know how to do the homework, so you're the only person who's losing out here. I don't need to do the homework. And it's so interesting that I think crazily it actually takes young people a long time sometimes to work out, oh, I'm the one losing out. But it sounds like that was something that you just had that maturity at a younger age. And I have to say, I was going to save this as a concluding point, but I just want to remind people listening and watching, you are 19. You are so mature. Your reflections, even this far, just so wise. It's crazy. You're 19. Let's just remind everyone that.
You're too kind. No, and it's really the reflections and all that. It simply comes from being open about things, from discussing things that often, people don't talk about. And once again, it leads back to that fact of parents and kids are not spending enough time together. That's the basic. That's just where it all starts. So I feel like I've been extremely lucky, and continue to be lucky because the homeschooling journey never ends. It never ends. It's a lifelong journey. It's not like, I'm done with school and now I need to stop learning. No, it's always been like that for me. It's always been like that. So, yeah.
And you have that experience of sharing things that you're learning, that you're interested about, even just in conversation, sharing those with your family. Now you're at university. Tell us what you're doing now and what life looks like now.
Of course. So I just wrapped up the first year of mathematical engineering at the Polytechnic of Milan in Lombardy, Italy. And so far, it's been great.
And for people who don't know, that's a very good university. So bravo.
Thank you. I've got to say that mathematics, it's something I've always enjoyed. But yeah, and with homeschooling, I was able to dedicate more time to the subjects that mattered most to me. And that's something I'm very grateful for, because while I do believe that you need to know a little bit of everything, right? You need to dip your toes in a lot of different subjects to figure out what you enjoy. In the later years of high school, I really had a chance to specialize in mathematics, and the ability to be able to study mathematics at this level in university is quite the gift. So it's been great.
Absolutely. And actually, I'm so pleased you picked up on that, because I think maths and science and engineering are subjects that often parents worry about teaching their children at home. They think, well, maybe I could read them history books, and maybe, if they're writing essays and they're doing literature, I understand how we do that. I think around the world, we have a fear of maths, and a lot of people say, well, I could never teach that. You hear that a lot more than you hear, I could never teach geography or whatever. But also, I think people worry that they don't have the setup to teach science or engineering type subjects. How did you study those at home? Was it something you just worked from books? Was it something you used online tools? Did you have a tutor? What did it look like studying those kind of subjects?
So up until age 10, it was very flexible, but also simply just getting the basics done. That's what we were focusing on. We were focusing on learning the basic skills, and still figuring out what I enjoyed more, what I enjoyed less. So to be clear, my mother, mostly my mother, but also my father, spent time with me up until age 10. Just, going through the books. Things changed when the level varied. In my case, I had a great tutor. We met this great homeschooling father, and at the time, I was learning math through Khan Academy, which is a great website. But we were getting to that point where I needed to get a tutor. So
how old?
This was probably 14, 15.
Join me for the second part of my conversation with Thomas in episode 4, when we talk about the role tutors and his parents played in his education, and the ability to achieve real mastery when homeschooling. See you next time.